literally like almost the day where you can say, you know what, I don't have to wear shoes for 2 days. I don't have to talk to real people for 2 days if I don't want to. It is almost Friday, guys. We're almost there. So how y'all feel? Okay, so how would you feel if instead of right now, it wasn't almost Friday, but you had a spot, right? You know what I'm saying? And it was almost Friday. So how you feel now? All right. So I ain't gonna hold you up too long because you guys are not here to see my atrocious face. I had a facial accident. It's called birth. But yes. Are you guys laughing at my? No, I'm just kidding. Anyway, keep moving. Coming up to this beautiful podium and stage is not only a poet, but they are a CEO of Guerrilla Prophet Foundation. Oh, I think I messed it up. Guerrilla Poets nonprofit organization. They are also not just a poet. They are a speed painter. And does your life need coaching? What about coaching and creativity? Because they are a creative coach as well. Take your left hand and your right hand and put it together.
Great intro. What is up, y'all? I'm so excited to be here. It's been a minute since I've been in Durham. So I'm going to jump right into my set because I cannot stand when I go to features and the poet's like, yo, okay, so I'm just going to talk about my life. We're doing the talk later, you know? So one of my favorite things about features is I get to craft them, right? It's almost like a gallery itself, right, with the poems. So I'm going to do some seamless transitions because I think they're yummy, but I will pause in between so you know when one poem has stopped and the other one starts so we can celebrate the piece. So if you hear something, say, Say, yes, poet. Yes, poet. Please give that feedback. The energy you give me, I will give it right back to you. Okay? Let's go. So I had a guy tell me one time that he didn't see what the big deal was about poetry. It was just words, and words, y'all, they don't mean anything. Well, I had some choice words for him. But I didn't say them. Instead, I told him about how I became a poet. I said, look, man, my dad was drunk outside the Mayflower restaurant the night he knelt down and placed his hand on my shoulder when I was 7. And he pointed up to a crescent moon with a star next to a steeple, and he said, look, remember this. And he started off to the car. And he left me in the parking lot. So I stared and stared until my eyes fell backwards into my face, became black holes and sucked the moon out of the sky. Y'all, my dad taught me how to see, how to listen, taught me there was poetry in every instance, taught me to interpret the forgotten languages. Later on, when I was 8, he deemed our poem Invictus, and he wrote it on the back of his toolbox in black, and we would recite it over and over down long roads. Y'all, my dad taught me about long roads, taught me when you are fluent in the tongue of the world, you must also know control, taught me what it means to be a poet. When I was 5, no lie, a snake bit him. And I watched this man bend down, grab it by both ends, and bite that snake in half. My dad taught me how to hold the devil in my mouth, how to spit him back out, how to swallow sin and speak deliverance. Taught me this like a wiggle. You got to grab it by both ends. Now that he's dead, I tell the stars themselves, look, remember this. Every time a poem supernovas at the black hole of my pen, because I may be the vessel, but I am still the captain of the ship, and God may move through me, but I move the God in them. Stagger off into the crowd, where they lay hands on me like butterfly pins. This becomes reverse revival. The moment my foot leaves the stage, I am the one now led to slaughter, and you become the savior. So clear a path, so my blood could Jordan its way to Jesus. Spitting a stiff stanza to be a staff of Moses, when we rockin' and a rollin' on the waters of my passion, because I still to this day got all of Noah's wilderness stampeding around in the ark of my rib. You call me lion, call me pigeon, call me shepherd, call me a crescent moon, threatening a star at saber point, holding the entire night for ransom. By dawn you will bear all your nakedness, a strip in each sentence. Tell me that shit ain't powerful. So the next time a poet says, look, your ass better be paying attention. Because I got a poem burning a hole in the back of my pocket. I got a poem burning a hole in the back of my pocket. I got a hole in my heart where I ripped out a part of it just to write it. And it reads, Dear Mrs. Williams, oh, I apologize for my behavior last night when I busted into the lobby of Oakwood, waking you up from sleep. Women your age think that young ladies should behave with grace, and I admit I was drunk, loud, and you deserve your rest. But see, I was looking for my grandmother who resides here. Her daughter, my mother, is dying. I know if I visited more during visitor hours, I would have been able to find her. I found you instead. And by the look of the flowers gifted by your family, I figured you were a mother too. I didn't mean to be so abrasive, but you refused to answer my questions. You see, my mother couldn't answer due to the tubes down her throat, her last breath pushing like they were fallopian to be reborn wherever it is we go. Her closed eyelids filled to the brows with tears like two cupping palms holding the Dead Sea still. When I asked the nurse why that is, she said, we don't know why they do that. As dehumanizing as the language, Mrs. Williams, it still wasn't an answer. I'm tired of silence from the living and the dead. So I came to wake every grave here at Oakwood Cemetery on a drunken binge of grief to rattle my grandmother's corpse from her mausoleum. Fuck your rest in peace when your rest brings no peace to the living. Mrs. Williams, your grave looks so tidy. I thought you were a woman who knew how to keep things in order. You know, finish what you started. I guess I'm mistaken that cleanliness is actually next to lies and secrets, and God must be a hoarder, because if no one knows anything's wrong, then nothing can get messy with emotions. Did you tell her what was wrong? Is a woman sentenced to silence from birth to grave? It's a wonder we don't come out the womb with our tiny clenched fists and our tiny clenched mouths to stifle the scream the doctor slaps out. Did you know that mothers who keep things clean by suffering in secret make loud messes of daughters that the world doesn't know how to clean up? Is your daughter screaming drunk across some woman's grave looking for the answers you never gave? Sometimes the dead need waking up. How is it fair that the living go on without knowing and the dead get to know everything without sharing? Did you say goodbye? Did you leave her anything other than antiques her siblings would split off the family tree fighting over, and a grief counselor with the audacity to ask, what have I learned? And what have I learned from this? Except that no one has an answer on how to put grief to rest, only how to bury emotions so deep you take it with you once you're dead. Mrs. Williams, if you see my grandmother up there, you tell her I want to know what heirloom of trauma cross-stitched our silence in the rocking chairs on the porches of our past. One last thing. You tell her I'm ripping apart every quilt to expose the needlework that's been done, because by God, when I have a daughter, I intend to tell it all. I will tell her about the Cherokee woman at the Sweat Lodge ceremony, who told us when we're making our way home to say out loud to the universe, I'm visible. That after doing anything spiritual, sometimes others don't see you because you're not quite in your body. But all of us were women, so I was like, women, our spirituality is our bodies. And the way the beginning was bred into our bones, how our womb was life force. She said once a truck almost wrecked into her on the way home, so she started shouting, I'm visible, so I want every woman right now all across this earth to stand up, and with all your maiden mother and crone mouths holler out, I'm visible, because we aren't being seen as equally human. Our bodies in constant wreckage against men who think it's a privilege to have a penis. Our bodies in constant body shops to please the riders of our plush thighs and hearts. There are more things that need to heal than bruises and blood when rape's involved. There are years upon years of manipulation and control, of silence snuffed out of our defenses and protection. So you stand up and tell them, I'm visible. Ask these lost boys where their mothers are, and if they can touch and talk to them the way they've done you. Ask them if their daughters will still be held under the same fist and force of their abuse. Ask them if there's a vendetta in their story from women, or if there's an absence of one, or if the only touch they ever got was from a prostitute when they paid for it, and it left them confused at service versus possession. It's not in the why, it's in the how you expose the devil dicks in the question. Ask them if they've ever been molested when passed out at a party, and if that's the fear behind their homophobia, that one day they may be treated the same way they treat women. Tell a muscle ain't got shit against a woman on a mission. I'm visible. There's no excuse for abuse when you've grown enough to know what your body can do. It will not be accepted and it won't pass by our inspection because we visible. We be woman warrior women, and you can't even be in existence without us. So coward, realize you are powerless against us. You cannot ignore our presence, and you will be haunted by your actions, because to disrespect us is to disrespect life. We are visible, and you're visible by your lust and your rules. Rich spoiled boys, you cannot buy us, and you can make all the laws you want, but you cannot soften our stubbornness. Hell hath no fury like a visible woman. So you shout it out loud so these so-called men can tremble at creation. You let your hips be the walls against brutality in this nation. You put your boots on under your gowns, queens and princesses, and you gather up your sisters, and you raise up your Athena, your Cleopatra, your Amazon, your Bellatrix, your brazen voices, and you tell the whole damn world, I'm visible. Sometimes too visible. Like the day my TED Talk was released. My talk was called There's No Such Thing as a Bad Kid, based on my work in lockdown facilities. Most of the comments on YouTube were supportive. And then there was Tim, who commented, told by the person who looks like she burnt down an orphanage in her childhood. Oh, Tim. How did you find out? What gave it away? Was it the soot on my fingers, the burnt shoelace? Or was it the children running in all directions to their freedom? You're right, I burned that bitch down. I did it for every child in the foster system who got sexually assaulted behind closed doors and paperwork. Every child who was told their trauma wasn't valid enough for violent outbursts. Teens who cut off ankle bracelet monitors to break out the group home because they weren't safe enough. So I showed up on the front porch, my voice a torch, my tongue a pitchfork, to show them how bright a heart could burn, how love could break bricks down and infiltrate oppressive systems, how the flicker of passion can backdraft a building into belief and hope. What you think I did the talk for? What was I supposed to look like? Polished, perfect hair and skin? Like I wasn't supposed to come out the flames of hell with no split ends? Don't you know that judgments are reserved for those privileged enough to have never seen horror? Don't you know that knights in shining armor are liars who have never seen battle? It's the warriors with dipped in metal you want fighting for your honor. Tim, I'm sorry. I'm sorry I didn't make it to your childhood in time to burn it down for you. Didn't stop the shadows from staining your eyes with defense mechanisms to protect the little boy who slumbers within them. But honey, now that you know what a hero looks like, maybe you can become one of them. Tim, there's so many orphanages, and I only got so many matches I could strike at once. Maybe you could set down your judgments, pick up a flame and find your purpose. There's too many kids who need us. On average, a child is abused every 10 seconds. Y'all, so far in this poem, there's been 12 of them. Tim, maybe you got a few blemishes, a few scars that shamed you into believing that you had to hide them. But it's okay to look like you've been through some shit. How else are little soldiers supposed to find the medics? Tim, I got enough love to gift you a box of matches, to uncurl my fistful of ashes and hold the hand of your inner child. Can't you see it's the damaged ones who make a difference? Honey, take my hand and let's go find your orphanage. get even more violent. Because y'all, things are already so violent. It's like this song that just keeps playing on repeat. Y'all know the one. It goes, all the other kids, the pumped up kicks, better run, outrun my gun. Nicholas is 14. Daddy died when he was young. Was a real man's man, you know, stop crying, I'll give you something to cry about. Showed he is privileged. If there's something you want in this world, you got to take it. Nicholas can't pass his classes, signs up for football, but the jocks laugh at him, starts to notice females, wants to touch them, but none of the girls will let Nicholas near them. He's starting to fall into position of society's toxic white male condition that if there's something you want in this world, you got to take it. Comes home with a black eye. Remembers Daddy said power is a weapon every man must have. If they hurt you, you hurt them back. Signs up for the reserves, but y'all, they still laugh. He's seen the counselor 4 times in 2 weeks, been given pills that make it hard to sleep, and he's already tired of being bullied. Daddy said a man is deserving of respect. He's starting to think if they ain't giving it, he's gonna take it. Classmates give him the nickname school shooter, a joke we've made in this culture. He's contemplating embracing it as his future. Society says a man is muscles, mags, and guns. There's no such thing as manly depression. His therapist says give the pills time to work. He tells the faculty if they don't do something, he's gonna do something first. 4 more warning posts go up. His Facebook looks like a death threat no one wants to face yet. Profile of the persona they gave him. The pill still ain't working, so he's been planning for months. Knows where the AR-15 is locked up. Knows every fire drill. Makes a last effort. Confesses to his crush. Sarah tells him to fuck off. It's Florida, Valentine's Day. Calls Uber, got his headphones on. He's been listening to the same song all night long. Pulls up to campus, pulls out the AR-15, starts to sing. All the other kids, kicks in classroom 2B. Sarah screams, puts a bullet between her breasts. Pow, you love me now? With the pumped up kicks. Targets a football player in fetal position, shouts, stop crying, I'll give you something to cry about. Pow, better run, better run. Cites the counselor, shoves the barrel in his mouth. Swallow this and see how it goes down. You prick, you never really gave a shit. Pow! Outrun my gun, opens full fire, hypnotized by the sound of the rounds till he runs out, panics at how loud the sudden silence is, flees into the sea of teens, cornered an hour later by the police, still wringing the red in his hands, doesn't even notice the sirens, shots still popping off in his synapses, doesn't understand what happened. All he ever did is what his daddy, white America, taught him, how to be a man. Isn't this the monster that the white male standard birthed, that the NRA upholds, that mental illness triggers when it's ignored? You know, is it guilt of their creation? The reason he's so privileged to be cuffed and not shot on sight when the cops arrive. All the other kids, pumped up kicks, better run, outrun my gun. A bitch? Bitch. Oh, bitch. Honey, after the club, and I took you home, told you I was done to put your pants back on and go back to your yard, you looked at me as if you'd never seen a dog before. To the boys, I've broken. Yes, I enjoyed the snap, crackle, pop of your pleas between sheets. Your inferiority was my breakfast for an unbalanced morning. You didn't know that when you starve a bitch in heat, she will bite the hand that feeds. She will feast on men who claim to be wolves. For years, I swallowed spoonfuls of your spite. Every time the spittle of my shine leaked from my lips, the only language you ever listened to was these hips. Couldn't stand to see me on stage like a big dog, but you forget. Shakira also sang about a she-wolf. How these thighs rise with the moon can bury you under opal ovaries in bloom. Honey, women can be hunters too. You can also be seen as a piece of meat. Food, I have told you not to come in here unless you're ready to ride bareback on barbed wire, because my love be a junkyard and this bitch be a Rottweiler. I have collected every crashed Casanova collision from boys who tried to crush me and their crushes, tried to leash me to a house only big enough to lay down in, tried to Stepford wife me into a picket fence. I have mangled every muzzle you have clasped on me in fear that I would bark back up your bones. Didn't want to admit it. You often offered your own body up. The only thing you ever caught, dog catcher, was feelings. Didn't you see my hunger? Recognize it as your own. You know, you could see the ribs of a bitch who's starving. Did you want to take your rib back? Are you mad that I took your spine instead? But wasn't the taste of the kill delicious? And wasn't I the beast you always wanted? You knew what this was. By the growl of my groin, boy, you were dinner. Just 3 courses steaming against a bedpost, your ego my dessert. Oh, honey, didn't you see my teeth from the dance floor? Be careful, man. We out here. We hungry. Though some days, y'all, I don't feel like eating anything. Not a salad, not a leaf of lettuce, not a burger. Like the time my boyfriend asked me if I wanted something to eat. We pulled into the cookout drive-thru and all I could think is of last year when I was starving myself running so hard. And Tyler's mom made homemade meatloaf out of love. Oh, y'all, it was so good. And I wept when I ate because I finally understood what eating was, the give and the take. But the thought of this conglomerate chemical patty, well, at the moment, I'd rather starve myself sick than eat this corporate shit. But I refrain from the explanation and just say, nah, baby, I don't want anything. While the tears are welling up in my eyes like a flogged priest's backside, taking the shape of crucifixes. There's a stigmata stuck in my throat. I'm choking on the world. My palms are bleeding psalms against my face when I finally break through the tears to say, you know, if I were God, I wouldn't want to talk to us either. But even as I utter this, I know it's ridiculous because I can feel his great fist coming down inside me to grab me for the pin. So I say, nah, God, he's still talking to us all the time. We just forgot the language. Tonight, I saw poets clack out ghosts between their teeth, become possessed by the connection between the living and the dead, the damned and the forgiven, and they're tied together in that order. I saw a woman crumble under her souled scale, and while opportunity disguised itself as a door, I wanted to tell her, honey, you already won. See, the competition, this stage is just a mind trick, but look at me, we are the magicians, and the magic, it's real, it's inside of us. But I went back to big city to see some souls in celebration, to find the flesh had already been rotten, poisoned by the slave cycle. I wanted to turn over tables, tell her this here ain't no waste of space. When we gather, we have potential, but we kill the outcome with an excuse to let loose. There's no progression. Y'all, there's a lot of movement, but ain't nothing been moved. So here we are now at a gas station, and ambulances are riding by executing their sirens, and it sounds like cash registers. The drawer is all skull and bones. The dead suddenly appear more awake than we ever were, and I'm praying while he's pumping blood into our steel horse since all the flesh is rotten, and I'm trying to find a way to tell God in the world I'm sorry. I've been watching my friends get picked off one by one, and I've been out here in these woods lying to myself like a coward, thinking if I just stay out here a little bit longer, I'll gain some sort of knowledge to turn the tides of our corruption. But y'all, the war, it's all around us, and there ain't no going back to sleep once you wake up. God is speaking to me in all tongues, and I can't feel anything but the sorrow and the sickness and the disintegration of continuous generations with the dead around me being risen. I can't feel anything but the stigmata bleeding into my stomach, and God knows that I'm not hungry. Not for one more bite nor corpse morsel. It all tastes like killing in the name of. It all tastes like the salt from Sodom, the sins of our fathers, the raped leftovers of our mothers. And I'm trying to conjure up the spirit of my dead brother, Alito, and ask him, did you ever find an answer? And what he suggests we do to pull out of this system. I'm sitting here being eaten from the scream emitting from the earth while my boots are lacing themselves, or maybe it's Alito himself, tying them up to go back to war. Everybody's always talking about the spiritual war, but no one ever talks about the mental war. You are only capable of doing what you believe is possible. So remember, if you want to sling rocks at giants, make sure there is a volcano in your sling, slung at an arc big enough to make the degree sing sign language to deaf angels. Wake the sky up so you can wake up. Before you grow gills and adapt to the pressure gauge you're being held in. Whatever that's towering over you with its gravel knuckles scraping your spine, crack your back up straight and heave your armor downward. You don't need it now. It will never be as courageous as the nerve endings of your own skin. You can take it. This, I promise. So split every stitched orifice, Orpheus. Eurydice's death is in every lover's eye, where the iris is the river that is running out of time. So you take her hand in the pupil's pulpit and bring us all back to life. There aren't strings strong enough to hold the notes, so you break them till it snaps the vocal cords in your throat. Bring the stone, the mortar mache knees. Use it to build a kingdom with no king. If you want to sling rocks at giants, make sure there's a volcano in your sling. When they ask you about the molten mornings, tell them it is where you wake and sleep. Tell them you've only known cold, but when it burns and your insides carry the temperature of 1,000 suns, the scale everyone likes to mention but is never touched. Touch them, tell them to touch you, get really close to your own hands, write about them, spread them, use them like antennas, like eyes, so you can find where the cold creeps in, and fill every foreclosed house with light to bring the angels home to roost. Rip off the roof of your fear. You don't need it now. Not here. You've already got all the answers to the questions you're afraid to ask, and how they tower like giants with their chains at half-mast. Put them to rest. Leave verses so tight you can slice the golden calves. If they are a monument of hard cash, you gotta be the diamond in the rough that never washes the dirt from its cuts. If you want to sling rocks at giants, you make sure there is a volcano in your sling, and you sling fire with that sky up to sing. And lastly, be careful of what gospel you singing, because I done been told that the Pentecostal prophets say my prophets ain't big enough to pickpocket. And the apostolic apostles say I gotta give 15% of my income, making me feed myself or my faith, so I guess I'm damned either way. I didn't know that fasting would be a requirement of the church. I didn't know that Lent would be a weekly offering. I guess I got tired of seeing old Mary, who's been through the church doors every Sunday, come out down at the welfare office on Monday, trying to get canned peas to cook in a crock pot of hope. I think your revolving doors of mercy are broke. I saw her last week on the corner of Belief Boulevard and Grace Avenue, window shopping for a reason to give thanks, and the pastor pulled up in his BMW, his smile matching the new paint, waved before driving off to his 7-bedroom mansion with its golden gate. And Mary, she just smiled like a stretched pew with her hands folded into a collapsed prayer. Watched her tithes drive off with her investment of security. I guess I got tired of paying for your property, so nah, ain't going to church on Sunday. Ain't rich enough to go to your business meeting. You treat your community like a stock market, but you ain't passing out no dividends. When you close your doors in below freezing temperatures to 2001, your city's homeless, while you raking it in for your house in the hills. And it is written, be humble before the Lord. Honey, ain't nothing humble about your home when it's got a heated swimming pool and a 5-car garage, when the shepherd's riding around his golf cart trading all that wool for coin while God's children are left out in the cold. Nah, ain't going to church on Sunday, but I will be praying for all our souls. See, I built my worship in the woods, and I don't have to offer any ante except for a confession and a line of communication. I don't need to window shop for a reason to give thanks, and y'all, I damn sure ain't got to give anything to be forgiven, except before to ask. Thanks, y'all.
So I'm gonna try something real quick with you guys. So I'm gonna say give it up for the poet, and then I want y'all to say thank you for your words. Y'all with me? Y'all with me? Sounds good?
Yeah.
Give it up for the poet! Thank you for your words! I'm not sure if you were prepared for all of this fire to be on stage, so you need to go around and check the sprinkler system, or we good?
No,
Oh, okay, I just want to make sure, because this is really hot right here.
Yes. No.
Do you want both of us to know? Or just...
You can tell Shane she can sit. Oh, hold on, I see up there.
Honest moment, was I the only person who thought there was a birthday cake on the wall? Yeah, I was like, who would get wall cake? Next, coming up into the microphone. So So what happened is, right, you ask people the names of things, and then you hear like an amazing set, and then all you can think of is like, you know how when people say my name is, I don't know, like Eric, and in your head you're like, oh, I thought you were gonna say Derek, and so now the whole time you're like, oh, your name is Derek. So I'm saying all this so hopefully the person who I'm talking about can give me the name of their.
Unless you struggle.
Okay, so here we go. Not only is she a author, but she's an author of authors. See what I did there? She has a publication in authors. And she's also an amazing teacher. Her students are the best. I wish I was in her class. Not like as an adult, because that'd be creepy, but like as a kid, because they say hilarious things, and they're all amazing. And if I'm not mistaken, they're all in a little book that you can purchase and open, and read those hilarious things. So nice little plug there. Hit my cash app. Y'all put your left hand and your right hand together and give it up for Ashley Luckett.
Let us begin with broken glass by the bathtub. Shower running cold at 3 a.m. Tennessee honey pooling in the seams between the tiles. It is one thing to know that alcoholism runs on both sides of the bloodline, another to wake up bleeding and cold with bottle shards trapped in the knots of your hair. In one version of the story, it's a wake-up call. Let's say wake-up calls are for Sunday mornings. What should I do with the Bible I keep tucked beneath the sink? Let's say the Bible is a true story, that Jesus did turn water to wine. The wine then transubstantiated into his own blood. What am I? Let me start from the beginning, y'all. I'm a little bit nervous. It's all right. I had an interesting conversation with my mother this morning about like blasphemy and like how many times I like take the scriptures and be like, ha ha ha, not today. And that's just a little bit in my head right now while I talk about it. From the top. Let us begin with broken glass by the bathtub. Shower running cold at 3 a.m. Tennessee honey pooling in the seams between the tiles. It is one thing to know that alcoholism runs on both sides of the bloodline, another to wake up bleeding and cold with bottle shards trapped in the knots of my hair. In one version of the story, it's a wake-up call. Let's say wake-up calls are for Sunday mornings. What should I do with the Bible I keep tucked beneath the sink? Let's say the Bible is a true story, that Jesus did turn water to wine. The wine then transubstantiated into his own blood. What am I then but a parable? The bathtub, a baptismal pool, the glass, a crown of thorns I placed upon my own head. What is the real cost of blasphemy? What? A hangover, a few scars? Let's say my grandmother taught me the best hangover cure the morning I turned 12 years old, after a shot of Jack, but before the birthday party, that the only two things she knows about being an alcoholic are that it's bad to be one and that they drink alone. Let's say the house is filled with grandchildren that don't ask any questions. What should I do when being obedient also means bending the rules? Call my grandma John the Baptist, who also lived on wild honey, also paved the way for the coming Messiah. What is being born again if not waking up in a hospital, everyone but me crying and calling on the Son of God? In one version of the story, it's a wake-up call. Let's say wake-up calls for 23rd birthdays. What should I do with the suicide attempt that starts out as a good time? It is one thing to actually have an addiction, another to need a convenient excuse on a Saturday when the bartender takes my keys before I've had the first sip. Let's say my drink of choice is the entire bottle, that I am grandma's most faithful disciple, that being sober any night of the week feels like a kind of betrayal. Let's say I'm the only one in my family for whom drinking is still a choice. that I've built a life out of rebounding all the times I've chosen wrong, that I know the first step on the road to redemption is admitting that I might have a problem, but I am still on step 0, getting blackout drunk and apologizing. There is a school of thought that teaches Jesus was addicted to giving forgiveness, that he surrounded himself with sinners just to get his next fix. What should I do on the days I am trapped between being the addict and the addiction? I swear I am so drunk and empty, I feel like a child of God. So I come from Stillwater Lake before sunrise, searching for catfish Saturday mornings. If you don't catch them, you don't eat. Is the joke our father forgets isn't funny. It's a grade school belly who's gone empty to bed more nights than anyone wants to remember. I tell you, this family ain't for the faint of heart. Because yes, 2 paychecks, and decent neighbors, and church choir every Sunday, but large hands and open veins turn the best dads into beastmen. I come from high till you know it's a good day. Gauge the temperature of mother's prayers, beg the baby to just be quiet, play outside, don't ask questions. I come from yes sir, no sir, the rooms are clean, the beds are made. I stitched a meal from ketchup and rice. Our brother is tending to the yard work. Mom is tattered pages of a wilting Bible held together with masking tape. The words, a poem that promises someday something like God will be possible. I come from possible is friends who will give away the things they trade for at lunchtime. How miracles look like juice boxes and quiet places to sleep. From apology to relapse and sorry again, from fear in all the wrong places. I come from backyard barbecue, firefly lit. The first day dad comes home, clean shirt, creased jeans, and gift in hand for all the days he was gone, and gone the days he was here. Daddy is a preacher now. Baby brother does not remember the time when he wasn't. Mom is gratitude sitting on the front porch singing hymns to the Stillwater sunshine. I come from Stillwater and broken promises, from waiting for the other shoe to drop. My baby brother is accused of rape and asks me to defend him. Asks me to talk about the boy who grew up at my dinner table, who knows the book of Psalms by heart and can sing the sunset down. The kid has a smile that has saved my life more times than I can count. And my rapist was a nice guy too, with an older sister too. She talked about choir practice, graduating at the top of his class, called me a liar because the two of them share the same last name, and I know what loyalty calls for. And my baby brother would not hurt a fly. He would trap one in a mason jar, hold it up to a glaring light, then treat it like a plaything till he was bored enough to set it free, then call himself the good guy, because after all, it did not die. I asked him, did you rape her? He said, I never do a thing like that. I stand, I ask again. No, I don't think so. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see. The ones that smell like good earth and sunlight, all wide and green and spilling out, taking all the space on the kitchen table before they even come out the bag. Those are the collards that are good enough to serve at grandma's funeral. Remember the scripture? Grandma said how God wants a church without spot or wrinkle. Well, we don't want to find no spots in our supper either. So we search the leaves one at a time, picking away what does not serve us, then rip all the green good that's left clean away from the stems. Some folks will tell you to save the stems. I say Sunday dinner ain't time to make do, and so there they are, A little changed, but not at all worse for the wear. Ready for the first rinse and soak, the first good singing too. You gotta sing to them collards, Grandma said. Make them want to do you right. So we sing all the verses to Amazing Grace, slow, just the way Grandma likes, but no one cries, because then you'll taste the sadness in the pot liquor. Everyone takes a turn getting their hands in the sink. Each takes a turn checking in on the men in the next room, talking bills and burial. The minister asking questions about the service, but the greens in the kitchen just holy and clean. The job of cutting the collards goes to the oldest daughter, but she's in the bedroom with the shades all drawn. And you gotta get the bundles tight, Grandma said. Loose collards don't settle, just like loose women, and I won't have either in my house. So we all take turns, stacking the leaves, rolling them full and ready to chop. Even the youngest of the cousins has a turn at the cutting board until the whole batch is ready for the second wash. That's the secret. Soak them again right before they go in the pot, in water and vinegar and a little salt, and everything else is up to the heat. Everything else is small talk and steaming the dresses, waiting for the morning and the caravan to come, to carry the pots from the kitchen to the church and moan over how good these greens really are, but only after the service. After the men carry the casket around to the back of the church and we sing up some more of that grace, return Grandma to the good earth. Let's go here. So the thing no one remembers about Bloody Sunday is the day before was just Saturday. Just a few colored folks gathered in the living room to talk about the walk they take the next day, and Amelia fried the kind of catfish that can only come from East Savannah, while Coretta stirred the collard pot just enough to fold the vinegar in. Martin told jokes at the kitchen table till folks couldn't sip their lemonade, afraid the laughter would transform the mouth into some kind of water hose. Nina got to singing the way she did that new Negro classic music till Bayard stood and talked in all a kind of freedom shuffle, and it went like that. The kids in the corner mimicking their aunts and uncles' games till the quiet hush of a righteous movement lulled them all to sleep. The next morning, it was leftovers and grits. Everyone fighting for the chance to say grace, knowing this might be the last opportunity to lead their friends in prayer, to go to God for the rights they've been seeking, but mostly the right to just meet again and eat and laugh the way they'd done just the night before, because Selma wasn't a buzzword yet for everything that is still wrong in this country, just a place where Martin III watched his daddy play the dozens with a group of folks who wouldn't dream of calling him Dr. King, not even the boys on the front porch with shotguns cocked and ready, leaning into the front door to ask for more biscuits and tea, and maybe a photograph transformed a nation to the kind that cares about colored bodies, but the thing no one says about Bloody Sunday is that night the movement was a waiting room, a hushed murmur making the decision to soon march again, even while the cute boy from Tuskegee sat at Amelia's bedside, humming some Marvin Gaye along with We Shall Overcome, and no one knows which song it was that lulled her back to consciousness, her face still swollen and bruised from where the concrete kissed her stubborn cheek, pressed it warm as autumn leaves beneath a loaded billy club till the rubble of shattered bones crunched like branches underfoot. She married that boy a few years later, but only because he marched on Tuesday, then came to tell the story about how some girl brought fish and cornbread and they all pretended to love it because they were too tired to say it wasn't seasoned right, and at least they hadn't lost their taste buds back on Edmund Pettus Bridge where so many things were left behind. Most folks who made it to dinner that night did not make it out of the movement alive. Or at least without watching their best friends' funerals while the boys from the front door watched their backs, and didn't that miss the point of it all? To give the whole of their lives to the struggle and still owe their grief as well. Still owe their pride and uplifted heads at a time they need only be asked to weep. And isn't that what we mean now to say Black Lives Matter? Not just the dead ones, but the ones that are one day laughing and the next at the hospital door or the jail cell or the cemetery thinking, my God, where did it all go? The thing no one knows about Bloody Sunday is the day before was just Saturday night. Just friends so in love with each other's laughter that they fought for each other's lives. I haven't read from this particular collection in a minute. I'm like, damn, I did all right. I think There is nothing so much like a store-bought heartbeat to remind us what living is not. The almost crimson pulling half speed to break at the river's edge doesn't flow quick like thunder from chamber to chamber, saying something like move or die. There is no pulse, no force, no kickback of the gun blast bearing target practice in our own lungs. The prosthetic pumping gives blood to the body, then sharpens the body's taste for blood. The twist of the iron gone copper at the mouth, the language not as clear. Are you still speaking, Lord? Your people got death on the brain. Got pride tucked open in the folds of the mouth to spew lies like old tobacco. There is a violent churning in the pit of our bellies, and this is the thing that moves us. The fear of time and timelessness got us knuckled about the throat now. We are a people brought down to our knees and all together ashamed to pray. Are you listening? We are as loud as the silence from the ricochet fire of gun talk. We know to shoot first, shoot next, ask questions, maybe never. The answers circling about our feet will never take root in our bones, and still we press for money, power, and the right to say our God came correct. We bought a war and put our veins to it. We flow heavy like desert sand. Are you watching us make a mess of it? Are you too much God to intervene? We cry holy, our tears an impulse while we wait for earnest grieving. The quick draw of our passion is as automated as breath. There is no thought here, no truth. There is nothing so much like a store-bought youth to remind us what living may cost. The blind devotion lessens the pain and heightens the tolerance of the body. The sliver of copper gone steel at the mouth, the intention not as clear. Why aren't you screaming, Lord? Your people got death on the brain. Got greed laid open at the corners of the mouth to spew lies like some kind of potion. We are all drunk now, as unsteady as children struggling through our first steps. We are wading through waters gone murky with our deception. We forward through the worst of it. We bought a lie and put our nerves to it. Are you watching us make a joke of you? Are you too much God to control us? We cry bloody and broken from knowing only an inauthentic heartbeat. Lord, we are wondering about this promise that may not soon enough come. We need our heart back, Lord. We are waiting on you. While I was reading, I was thinking, what war was I talking about when I wrote this poem? It's like it can be so recycled, like so many of the death poems that I write. It's like, damn, what new story is this? What version? What cycle are we on? And that's depressing. So let's move to something that's depressing in a different way.
Nice.
I love, I hadn't planned to talk this much, I'm just gonna do like poem after poem. But I love like when I am so moved by someone's work that like their work has to change the set that I do. It's just like, damn, she can't be honest. I guess we'll do the same. Our relationship was gas stations and Waffle Houses, midnight highways and country songs. Sex in the shower at 3 a.m. to prolong the time between nightmares. I think of you only with the wood-tipped black in my fingers, burning your figure in the back of my throat. I miss you like a gun in my mouth. That relationship's over. The little girl in me who's been hurt before is the rough edge of one broken puzzle piece. No matter how clear the picture is, my heart still doesn't fit quite right. Still doesn't settle comfortable into anyone's jigsaw dream, has always been the reason to pull it apart, put it on a shelf that is stacked to the ceiling with other boxes in various states of disarray. I got daddy issues, mental illness, domestic violence, and rape survivor. My life sometimes takes the Where's Waldo approach to finding why I'm depressed today. The page filled with the faces of folks who promise to always be here, and I do not hold their leaving against them. Sometimes I too find it hard to stay. Find it hard to stick to a promise that is tattered pieces of an old cliche, like I swore on my name I would never lie to you. Because that's what liars do. You stand face to face and pledge to tell the truth. The truth is an elusive creature. It's like writing a poem about puzzle pieces when it's really a game of cards. We wake up each morning not knowing which set of symptoms we've been dealt. We stack the deck against each other, all sharpened spades and shattered hearts. We unearth a litany of reasons to bet against our love, and I am no poker face, but I know a good bluff when I see one. It's the smile on the face of a child the first time he's tall enough for a roller coaster. We race to the falls that cannot kill us, laugh at that fear and call it fun. It's like spinning on the head of heartbreak to talk about the lessons we've learned, like we fell in love for want of a teacher. When what did love ever teach us? except how to be good cheaters and the quickest way to cut a class. And that has nothing to do with puzzles or cars at great days at an amusement park, except to say that I can spot a mixed metaphor when I see one. So we shuffle all our pieces, finding ways to fit together, playing turn by turn in tandem with this life's ups and downs, the slow creep to free fall. We scream and hold on, forgetting for a moment the best part is getting off. And there's some symmetry there, I guess. They say the quickest way to get over a lover is to find yourself under the next. And who knows at this point who's using whom to appease the pain of a past heartbreak. But I know the person I used to be loved someone a lot like you a long time ago. And no one has heard from either of us since. And that is not an excuse. It's just the truth I promise to tell. The truth is an excellent teacher. He says, at any point in time, we are all easy to fall in love with. The question that gets difficult to answer over time is why, and class is in session until we get it. The brilliant of us catching on quickly, but here's what I have gathered. I know that the floor will always catch you when the fall makes you wish you had died. This body will run out of water before the soul exhausts reasons to cry. Sometimes I say go when I mean please. But that kind of truth ain't pretty when your heart is looking for a new place to settle, so I just pull our pieces apart. Box up that grief, put it back on the shelf. So over time, we take the brand name of a thing to be the thing itself. When you reach for a Kleenex, you don't always have a Kleenex. Just some unnamed facial tissue standing in the stead of this thing your heart still calls by one name. It's the same with Band-Aid, chapstick, Pop-Tart, Crock-Pot, Google, I get it. When you said love, you didn't mean love. You meant here, come hold the place of the girl my heart would choose before you. The one it will always long for, the one it still calls by name. I have one more poem that I want to share with you guys before I get out of your way, and it requires just the tiniest bit of math teacher explanation. I can't help it. So infinity, right, is a thing. And most people conceive of infinity in this idea of like, no matter how big the number is, you can always add another number to it, right? Like 1, 2, a million, and so on. You can always add one. That is one type of infinity, right? We call it the countably infinite. There's also another type of infinity, which is uncountably infinite. And the easiest way I can think about that is like if I start with like a whole piece of paper and I rip it in half, right? I can take that half and rip it again, and rip it again, and rip it again, and rip it again. And like, technically, I can always rip the thing in half. It will never dissipate down into nothing, except that there's a certain point where there's no longer like physically possible for me to do it, even though there are like molecules that are actually there. That is the uncountably infinite. Here's a poem. That is kind of about math, but not really. Fighting the urge to say more math teacher things. If anyone has math questions during the talkback, we'll do it now. So there is a difference between the countably infinite and that which is uncountable. The rain that falls to water the earth and the vapor it distills to. My students say that thing about always adding one. I ask if there is nothing smaller worthy of addition. There is an infinite number of numbers between 0 and 1. Some of them we have names for, others are just a thought. I am alive today because an old friend thought of me once, reminded me of promises made a third of our lives ago. She asks me to name one thing I am willing to stick around for, then watches me distill that thing down to its vapor. My brother becomes his laughter, becomes the air between his teeth. There is a countable number of atoms there, but no way for me to count them. She asks if I will keep breathing to honor molecules too small to see. A student trips in the hallway and another says, "Go kill yourself." Everyone around the two of them laughs. even the one who's the butt of the joke. I hear the laughter fall to the ground and the sadness it distills to. There is a countable number of suicide attempts of high school students last year, an uncountable number of times they've smiled while sharpening the blade. I am alive today because a teacher saw an off-kilter grin once, asking me to dream of a future with too many joys to count. My student who slipped me a suicide note the third day of their sophomore year walks across a graduation stage, and I know that dream is here. Depression is a countable weight, but the days can feel so uncountable, an uncountable number of moments between each one and the next. It is an insatiable river held back by a levee I build myself. A countable number of moments is broken with no time to prepare. I am alive today because I decided to get out of bed once, decided to eat, decided to shower, decided to live up to my own good name. There are days I am drowned in sorrow and the guilt that it distills to. Days I can't see the difference between the rain and all this vapor. There is an infinite number of atoms comprising every flood, but I am built to withstand the water. You can count on it.